Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our fourth J70 Monday here as we're getting ready to talk about the 2021 J70 Worlds that are going to happen in California. Whereas we take the next 30 seconds to let the rest of the folks in the room, we want to do our normal public service announcement here of if you're not a member of the J70 class or if you haven't paid your dues yet this year, we'd appreciate it if you'd go to this link and join the class. You know, in these times, the class still needs to operate and we all need to pay our dues and pay our memberships and help support the class. So when
Alex,
you have time, has Alex paid?
You paid, Alex?
Oh yeah, I'm all paid up.
I have paid as well. So, you know, if you guys, I know Eric paid, I saw his name on the list. So when you guys have time, please be sure to do that. Without further ado, I'm Alan Terhune. I'm sure I've talked to a bunch of you on the last J70 Mondays, but we have two new speakers to the J70 Mondays. We have Alex Curtis. Alex is with us, I believe.
Yeah. Hey, Alan, how's it going? Eric?
Alex is in Newport Beach, and Eric Doyle, who's usually in San Diego. I'm not really sure where he is right at this moment. Eric?
Hey, guys. I'm hanging in the Midwest, man.
Nice.
Outside Lake Minnetonka.
Where it's probably kind of cold right now, right?
You know, yesterday was beautiful, but it's a little chilly now. Yeah, it's like 55, but it's going to get up to 70 tomorrow. So.
Got it. Well, we have our two West Coast J70 experts here to talk to everyone about what we'd hoped would be the Worlds this year, but will be the World Championship in 2021 at the California Yacht Club. So without any further ado, Alex, take us away on what we're going to cover here today.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. We're gonna cover just kind of the basics of what we're expecting to see next August 7th through 15th. We're going to talk a little bit about the race course, some of the expected conditions, some variables that go into the weather, and then finish up with kind of what North Sails has going on at the moment in J70 World.
Gotcha.
So let's, you know, the top reasons to go to LA. This is a beautiful picture, Marina Del Rey. This is probably late in the evening. In the back, this faces Malibu. You're looking at the Malibu Hills. On a clear day, you see the Hollywood sign right there. That smiley face looking jetty is the harbor entrance to Marina Del Rey. Right there is the Venice Beach Pier. I mean, California is perfect, right? 72 degrees, sunny. Logistics are super easy. You fly into LAX. Leaving LAX is a little bit of a hassle, but you drive 15 minutes, boom, you're right there at the California Yacht Club. Eric, can you think of a reason to not come to the Worlds next year?
No, it's going to be an epic event. You know, looking right there, a picture shows it all. You know, you leave the harbor, you kind of head. This picture is from the south, facing north. You see the famous Venice Beach there. Muscle Beach. I think Alec gets up in the morning and goes pumps the lion there on the beach. Go a little further north, past that's the Venice Pier, and a little further is the Santa Monica Pier. Famous site you often see with the Ferris wheel and the attractions on the pier when blimps or something are showing views of LA, downtown LA to the right. You know, our race course, our starting area is going to be right off the Santa Monica Pier in that beautiful Santa Monica Bay there. It's a fantastic place to sail. Very challenging. Like we said, the logistics are easy. The you know, the club is incredibly well run, very professional. They love putting on events. They do a great job off the water, and they have great race management, great race committee, super dedicated staff, and a lot of great volunteers. So it's going to be a great event. You will not be disappointed.
So guys, I've never been there before. So perfect California weather. We're talking what, 75 degrees, something like that, sunny?
Yeah, probably 70. You know, you wake up in the morning, you probably need to put on a fleece or something on your way to the club. And then by about 9, 10 o'clock, when you're about to leave the dock, it'll probably be 68, 69 degrees. Sun will start to come out, and Eric, what do you bring out with you on the water in perfect conditions?
Yeah, I think you always bring at least a spray top in case it pipes up. You know, the water doesn't get too hot there. Probably be it's August, so it'll be mid 60s, upper 60s. If we're lucky, we'll see like 72. So if the breeze pipes up, you know, the waves get pretty big, and you definitely want to have a spray top, probably more for the ride in if you're a little wet or something like that. And that's all you need. Some good sunscreen. You know, by August, all the June gloom will be gone. It should be sunny all day, even when it's not. You know, there's some UV that breaks through, but it's pretty low stress. You know, it's not like San Francisco where it's full metal jacket and you bring everything. This is kind of the opposite. This is tranquilo sailing, very gentlemanly.
So Alex, what time will you be surfing in the morning pre-sailing then? 8:30, 7?
Yeah, I like to get up at 7 and go. And actually, I sailed Cal Race Week last year with Tara Layton, and our VRBO was a block away from the beach. So get up, walk over to the beach around 7:30, check out the surf, maybe get in the water for an hour, and then head over to the club.
Gotcha. All right. So, you know, now that you've convinced us all to go, what's some of the inside intel here on Marina Del Rey?
Yeah, so the first thing, this is from like LAX, literally looking out over the entrance. Kind of on the way out, I always go to the right. I don't know why, it's just routine. It's a little bit shorter distance to the race course.
It's closer.
I actually call that corner, closer. I call that corner crap point because that's where all the seals poop and all the seagulls poop. So you really, you know, it's very vivid imagery to me on leaving the harbor, but you got to bring engine with tons of gas. It's about an hour-long trek to the race course from the dock out. There is a gas dock on the way out in case you're low. You know, pretty mellow starting times, 11:55 or 11:30 to noon. I like to leave the dock between 10 and 10:15. There's a grocery store really close by to the club, 0.75 miles away. If you're looking for a good breakfast burrito, just Google Mexican restaurant, and chances are there's 5 in the area, and you can't go wrong with any of them. So those are kind of my insider tips. Eric, you sail stars there all the time. That's got to be a brutal trek out to the race course.
You need to sail a star sometime because it's never brutal in a star, okay? Just get that straight to begin with, all right? There's a little bit of a hike out to the race course. Star doesn't need a lot of wind. You know, we tack up that channel, we point pretty high, and then you go out the gate here to the right, and it's, you know, close hauled on the wind. We're looking at the Malibu Hills there in the background, you know, right where that sailboat's to the right. Just a little beyond that, it's probably gonna be our starting area. So Alex is right. You know, you're gonna have to have a motor. You can usually sail in, but they don't want you to use a spinnaker once you get inside the harbor on the way in. And you're gonna need the motor in the morning anyway. So, you know, put it on once you get in the harbor. Basically going out this channel, motor out on the right-hand side, you sail up the middle, and you sail home. You're sailing on the right-hand side of the channel. There's buoys showing where you're supposed to do all those things. And like we said, it's California. It's near the coast. At night, the wind basically dies, and it doesn't come back up until the land starts to heat. So, and that's, you know, 11, 12 o'clock. So it's generally, you know, 90% of the time, it's going to be a nice motor out to the race course.
So since you brought up the breeze, and again, you know, I'm looking forward to getting all your tips here. Let's talk about it. What is a typical July, August sea breeze in California, or at least outside of LA here?
Yeah, so this is a picture taken. This is, you know, if you were to open Windy TY, which is my favorite app around here because it's very graphic, and you see kind of what's going on all along the coast. But that green dot, Eric, Alan, is that's Cal Yacht Club, the harbor entrance. But this is a typical afternoon look. You know, you sail out, it's a clear day. You probably sail out or go motor out, or you're probably in a southerly. And if it's a clear day, it'll probably go to the right pretty quick. And that's where you get this look. If it's cloudy, it's probably going to hang more south. And then if it's really clear and hot inland, it's going to go to the right pretty darn quickly. Is that kind of what you look at too, Eric? Windy TY?
Yeah, I look at that, or sail flow. They all, you know, take the same, they use the same models, you know, the NAM or something like that. But yeah, like we said, the breeze is super light in the morning, fills in, depending on how strong the Catalina Eddy is, which we're gonna talk about later. But it's light southerly in the morning, westerly, and then it gradually, you know, goes to the right, goes more northwesterly, and fills. And then if we're out there late, if we, you know, get behind, have to do a couple races, or we have a lot of general recalls, or wait for the breeze, then late in the day, it'll often die and go back to the left. But hopefully we'll be done sailing by then. But yeah, a nice, you know, again, this is not Long Beach or San Francisco. We're going to be sailing in 10 to 14 knots of breeze. First race, you know, they're going to start as soon as the wind starts to come up. Probably be Bill Stump as our PRO. He's very experienced. He's been there a long time. He's not going to start us in too light a wind. He's going to let us settle down just for a little bit, but we're liable to have, we could have a first race, you know, 8 to 10 knots, and then it'll start coming in and be nice. It's generally pretty flat, though we could have some big groundswell. If there's a big southerly, then the other thing we got to know is that there's going to be a big fleet. It's going to be 90 boats or so. So after we do the first lap and we're going back upwind, there's going to be a lot of chop, right? A lot of boats, going to create a lot of chop. But, you know, I think 8 to 14 knots, that band is what we're going to have to be very prepared for.
So in talking about the sea breeze earlier, you know, again, I'm trying to pick up as much of this as anybody else. You guys had mentioned that something more of, if it was cloudy, it tended to stay more south and it went more to the north if it cleared, something like that. Can you guys clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, maybe go to the next slide and we can show you a little bit of what influences that quite a bit. Alex can talk about that.
Yeah, so this graphic is a Catalina Eddy, and this typically happens when there's a large low pressure system kind of sitting over Southern California, where it's blowing, you know, anywhere from 40 to 60 knots, probably 20 to 30 miles offshore. And if you see, Alan, if you can highlight Catalina Island, which is just in kind of that middle area, yeah, right there, that's Catalina. The wind will actually wrap all the way around it from the south and kind of parallel the coast from south to north. And in these conditions, it's generally pretty cloudy and relatively thick. It's more of a winter phenomenon, but sometimes, like during May gray, June gloom, and certain parts of the summer, you see a big Catalina Eddy, and it can kind of stick around. You could have a whole day of general breeze direction is south-southeast, anywhere from 140 to 180, something like that. And then, you know, as clouds start to break apart, then the breeze will look for the breeze to kind of trend more to the right. And that generally is associated with a weakening of the offshore breeze as the land kind of heats up and kind of takes over.
Got it. So are there any like just real basic rules of thumb that you guys use for there, or is that pretty much it? Is there a number, a go left of number, you go left, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, if the Eddy's strong and holding on, the breeze is usually left to 230. And it might be, you know, the Eddy could be quite weak, but the breeze will still be southerly in the morning. It's just it'll break up that much quicker. So if we get out there the first day, the first start, and the breeze is 200, and it's kind of a little bit cloudy, it hasn't quite broken through yet, you know, the marine layer gets pushed offshore by the heating inland, then you're probably going to look left pretty hard. And then as it clears up and the heating inland, you can see there the breeze is going on the south side of Catalina. The breeze will jump and it'll go to the north side of Catalina. And then there'll be more, it'll try to come more perpendicular with the land. And then as the day goes on, Earth keeps rotating, the breeze will go more north, more northwest, northwest to north, and we'll get around, it'll go as far right as 290, 300, even, 320 or something like that. So, the general, very basic rule of thumb, cloudy and overcast, left to 230, you look pretty hard at the left. Starts clearing up. You can start seeing more of the Malibu hills and the points in the distance. You start looking on shore, the marine layer's backing off. You can see the Hollywood Hills. You can see the famous Hollywood sign inland a little bit. That means there's quite a bit of heat, and the breeze will increase, be a true sea breeze building. It'll enhance the thermal, and it will tend to go more to the right. It's very challenging sailing out there because things can happen, quite quickly, and it's going to be a great event because it's tough sailing, and you got to be on your toes the whole time.
Got it. So one of the other things you guys had mentioned, and we'll go to the next slide here, is obviously it's ocean sailing, right? So there's some current, there's some swell, there's all kinds of different situations for that. So if you guys could talk about that a little bit, I think that kind of plays into it.
Yeah, so this diagram is kind of our Google Maps of the racing area, and 95% of the time we're going to sail on race course A, and hit pretty much any of the breeze directions other than very, very northerly and kind of light offshore. We'll sail in course A, and the arrows are associated with the swell. So blue is kind of like either wind-driven swell from the northwest or any sort of ground swell from the northwest. That's usually, a wintertime swell direction where big storms form kind of off of Alaska and push all the cold water down into Southern California. The green is associated with a south swell, which is more of a summer swell, where, you get these big storms off of Mexico, and it generates all this swell and pushes warm water up into Southern California. And a lot of times, let's say it's a clear day and the breeze is, 280, which is a pretty typical breeze direction for Santa Monica Bay. And you have a south swell. And to check the swell, I would go to surfline.com and just look at the buoys off of the Catalina Ridge. That'll give you a pretty good idea of what sort of swell is going on in the water. But say it's a south swell, you're going sailing, and starboard tack will be kind of perpendicular to the waves, and port will be a little bit more with the waves. If there's hardly any swell from the south, generally the breeze will kind of pick up the wind swell, and you'll get some more right to left current up at the top of the course, and port will be into the waves, and starboard will be perpendicular on the other side, on the weather side. So that's just kind of the general kind of knowledge about understanding what's in the water. And you get these big current lines all over the place with little bits of seaweed in it. Not huge kelp like San Diego, but there are some weeds out there, and it is easy to see kind of what the current is doing.
So would you say that the current is uniform, or is something you need to pay attention to because there are differences across the course?
Yeah, you got to pay attention to it. The thing that I like to do first is I kind of look at the surfers along the beach on the way out. That tells you exactly how much swell is in the water, because in general the current goes down the coast from north to south, but when there is big south swell, it goes the other direction. It goes from south to north. So if you when you pull out and you see a couple guys staring at girls on the beach from the lineup, and they're kind of drifting from south to north, then you know that there's some more south swell in the water. If they're going more towards the entrance, then it's probably just traditional wind swell and northwest swell.
Got it. So how, I know you mentioned the weed and the kelp, and, I've sailed in San Diego quite a bit. It's still something you're gonna have to worry about though, right, Eric? I mean, you can't just, you're not going there without a kelp cutter.
You are not going there without a kelp cutter and planning on not catching weed. It can be really bad. Up near Malibu, there's a lot of rocks and areas. That's what kelp needs to grow. And if there's a strong northwesterly breeze, it can break free and really wreak havoc on the race course. Not often, but it does happen. So don't go without a kelp cutter for sure, and because like Alex said, the current normally runs north to south. So that's putting it onto our race course. But then, when the current goes in, the harbor's quite big. So it runs into that entrance there. So it's pulling a lot of water right onto our race course. And it can eddy up there too. It can be coming in quite strong. And then, like Alex said, push up near the beach. So in that case, there's often more at right at the starting line. But most of the time, there's more current the further out to sea you go, the further upwind you go. So at the top mark, there can be quite a bit of right to left current setting you. So be careful on that starboard tack ley line.
Gotcha. So in listening to you two, what I've heard, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, is we're going to race in 8 to 14 knots pretty much every day, but there's going to be a pretty confused sea state. It's not going to be huge, but there's going to be a swell. There's going to be a little bit of chop. There's going to be a lot of boats. So it seems to me going fast and having a good setup is going to be pretty key for this venue. So I guess I'll hit you guys both right up for it right away. So what are some things you think are going to be important in that regard, knowing what we're facing for this event?
It's going to be interesting because, like we said, the first race is likely to be lighter air, looking for power, and flatter water. There might be an underlying groundswell. So like Alex said, a lot of times you end up starboard straight into the swell, but on port, it'll kind of be a side swell. So it'll be pushing the boat one way and then the other. And, you got to resist the urge to steer through it too much. As you go up the swell, a lot of times the jib backs just a touch and you get down the bottom of the swell and accelerate, and the outside telltales are luffing. So you got to be very careful to just steer the boat straight in that scenario. And then, so we could do a first beat light air, flat water, coming downwind, same deal, but the chop's starting to pick up. Now the breeze starts picking up and we turn back upwind. There's 90 boats. Now it's a little more wind, but the chop's getting really bad. So we've gone from, I think, kind of sheeting hard and trying to point high to, more power in the boat, worrying about keeping the boat going through the water in the chop rather than pointing as much. And then, by the second race, we'll probably see, like you said, 12, 14 knots, and then it'll be a little more. We'll start winding the rigs down a little bit. We'll start hiking up max all the time, probably be into the backstay a little bit, and it'll be just beautiful sailing. The waves will pick up. We'll be doing some pumping and surfing downwind. And so we're gonna, you're gonna run the gamut. You're gonna have to do the light air, flat water really well, and you're gonna have to do medium breeze, really keeping it going through the chop well too. So
yeah,
maybe
I
Alec
think
can
Eric,
talk about the downwind a little bit too.
Yeah, and you hit the nail right on the head. I call it keeping the rope on. It's like, you're sailing in Marina Del Rey and you get off the starting line and you're kind of going upwind and you're kind of talking to your guys and on the rail. I trim the main and I work with the driver, so we're working on our targets and I'm paying attention to the compass, but I rely a lot on the information from the rail. And all the time I sail with my good buddy Pat Powell all the time. And Pat, what's going on? What's going on? He's saying, just keep the rope on, Kurt Eye. Just keep the rope on. Just full speed all the time. Understand the pressure differences. And then downwind, it's really easy to oversteer with the swell. The guys who I sail with, you know, if you ask them, they'll tell me I'm super, super pushy about keeping the tiller on the deck, the frying pan technique, and using the weight to steer the boat rather than the rudder. There's just huge gains to be made because there are some pressure differences, and you get Rodney coming across. You know, I'd say boaters in Marina Del Rey really aren't that educated, and you get Rodney with his fenders out and his gold chain just marching right through the race course, and you're just like, okay, here we go. Here comes a 4-foot bomb, and you know, you got to get ready for it. And so everybody's got to be super precise about their weight placement and their kinetics, and you know, the bow guy really has to be working with the tactician about where he sees the pressure and kind of keeping, you know, positive vibes, because it can get frustrating with confused swell for sure.
Got it. So we did have one question in the chat room here, going back to, actually 2 questions, going back to stuff you guys already covered. So one, well, this is going to back up a little further in our discussion, but should be a quick answer, is what do you do about getting out to the race course if you have a torpedo? So Alex, give us the 10-second answer.
You don't do it. Don't bring it. Just leave it at home. You might as well bring your paddle and paddle out to the race course if you have a torpedo.
All right, there you go. Torpedo answered in 10 seconds. But the longer question is, so we talked about kelp, and for folks that aren't used to sailing in that or seaweed like you guys are, obviously using the kelp cutter is easy on the keel, but what do you guys do for the rudder? What's the Southern California trick for getting weed off the rudder?
Oh, you got to have a weed stick with the V on the bottom, you know, that sits in the back of the boat, just inside the backstay. And someone goes to the back and just pushes it straight down off the bottom of the rudder. Definitely have to have that too, a good kelp stick to get it off the rudder.
And how critical do you guys think it is to back down or even send someone in the water between races to get it out of like that whole keel area?
I build it into my routine. It's like at 4 minutes, I want to be near this side. We just do a quick back down at 4 minutes, and as long as I know I'm comfortable and in the zone where I kind of want to end up, especially in a big fleet, it's just you have to do it. And then if you really think you're slow, you know, you hate to see those guys kind of searching for answers, diving in the water, but chances are if you're really slow, you go and you'll pull some grass out of the keel box for sure.
Got it.
That's a J70 bonus, getting it stuck in there.
It is, isn't it?
You got that. You got to have a guy in the water for every race. Yep. It's terrible.
All right. So we talked about the going fast, you know, keeping the boat easy to sail, something that you can be versatile with all the waves. But what are some of the tactical keys for Marina Del Rey? I know we touched on it a little bit, but your quick rundown, you guys have covered this before, but I just want to reiterate this because I think it's pretty important.
Yeah, I think it's important to look up, you know, from the moment you wake up. You know, in San Diego, I don't really even look at a forecast. I can just cruise into the yacht club and tell what's going on with the marine layer as it relates to the hill. It's kind of the same thing in Marina Del Rey. You know, you wake up and the marine layer's thick. It's going to take a little bit longer to fill in, and it might be more south when you get out of the jetty. But you wake up and it's a crystal clear blue day, and you can see the Saddleback Mountain and the Hollywood Hills sign. That's chances are it's going to go right pretty quick. And Eric touched on that earlier, but also as the sea breeze starts to develop, you get these big, high towering clouds that are essentially storms in the desert. Basically the bigger the clouds, the windier it's going to get. And that's kind of been my experience, and just understand what the tide cycles are and the swell in the water.
Got it. All right. So we were talking to you two about, you know, again, we're talking about boat setup and going fast, but let's talk about your sail lineup and what our choices are and what you guys would recommend going into this event. So, you know, we'll talk about mains first. So Eric, tell us a little bit about the 2 mains that we offer and what you would what factors you would use to decide which one to use here.
Yeah, the XCS2 has been our most popular model and still is. You know, it's just been developed over the years, primarily for the southern masts, which are a little bit bendier. A lot of people, there's been a lot of work in the past year, couple of years with spreader angles and sweep and things like that. But this is, you know, if you haven't pushed your spreaders all the way forward, you've just got kind of a middle of the road mast, middle of the road spreaders, you know, this sail sets up on it beautifully. You know, it's a little fuller, it's easy to power up. It's really nice in the choppy water, which, you know, a lot of the times in Del Rey, we're going to need a very forgiving setup. A lot of times we're going to be looking for power. I mean, I think we're going to race, you know, 75% of the time with everybody sitting on the rail and hiking, but there'll be a lot of times when we're trying to get power out of the boat. You know, we're going to ease the rig. We're going to be, you know, we won't be into the backstay. And it could be a little different tack to tack. You know, we could be trimming a little harder on starboard going into the swell, the waves, and on port, you know, we'll be a little more twisted, a little more traveler up, give a little bit bigger groove. So it's really nice to have this sail if you have that kind of mast. And then the other main we offer came out last year, you know, won the Worlds, the F1 main. Little specific for the, you know, we developed that sail for the stiffer mast, specific in Selden, and now a lot of guys have been pushing their spreaders all the way forward on the southern rigs, and so this sail's a little more luff curve, matches those masts really nicely. You know, anytime the mast is really straight, you know, this sail fits on it perfectly. It's nice because you can sheet hard in the flat water. You know, when you don't have any backstay on, and then as soon as the breeze powers up, it flattens out really nicely without tipping the boat over. So, you know, depending on your mast, that's kind of the lineup we have.
So one question I did get, who's someone who's not on this presentation, but wanted me to ask you guys while we're on the main talk is, do you think you have to tune the rig any differently because of the swell or anything like that there? Like to get the main to work the way you want it? Do you guys typically have to do anything? You've talked about this forgiving setup and all this other stuff. Do you think there's any rig tune changes that you guys do?
I think just being conscious of where you are in your setup, and you know, I'm an Etchell sailor as well, so I'm constantly sighting the mast. But understanding in the first race of the day, you might need a little bit of sag in the middle mast to generate some more power, especially big fleet, light air. But I can't say, you know, it's probably pretty easy for the head stay to get too loose in light air and swap. But I don't change much in terms of my tuning, really.
I think you just got to be careful if it's light and you're trying to find some power, and you say, okay, what do we think about easing the rig? And then, as Alex alluded to, you know, look up and look at the clouds. And it could be light, but if it's sunny inland, the marine layer is pushing out, that means the breeze is coming. And, you know, you don't want to get stuck, you know, with your lowers too loose and the breeze comes up to, you know, 12, 14, and you're trying to pull some backstay on. You can't do it because your lowers are so loose and the main just gets so flat right away. So you know, that's one thing. Just before you make a rig tune change, you know, look up. Is the breeze going to stay the same or is it going to come in? And then, you know, likewise, late in the day, if it has that feeling that, you know, the marine layer is pushing back in a little bit, or it's getting a little hazy and light, you know, it might die, and you might make sure you're not caught too tight, you know, for that last race. And especially if it's late in the day. If, you know, we're out there till 4 or 5 o'clock. It's not like Santa Barbara where the best breeze of the day is at, you know, 5, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
There it's kind of the other way. It starts dying, as anybody who sails the twilight races up there will tell you.
Right.
Especially if LA gets really hot. But if LA gets like above 90 degrees, you know, the sea breeze won't fill all the way in, and you can expect it to start to die a little bit earlier. But if if LA is like 70, 75 degrees, then the sea breeze will kind of stick around kind of almost all day. But if it's a really, really hot day, it sometimes has trouble sticking around super late.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it creates a little high there, dampens the breeze.
Yeah.
And it could be hot. It's going to be in August.
So let's talk about jibs a little bit, because both of you prefer to use different jibs here, and I think it's a good segue to hear what both of you think in terms of why you like each one and how they fit in the program. So maybe Eric can talk a little bit about the J6, and Alex can talk about the J2 and kind of where they fit in and sailing at the Worlds, how you might choose one or the other.
Yeah, so I actually like using the 2 more than the 6, especially in these bumpier conditions. You got to sail, bow down, kind of press the whole time, but the little bit of return in the back gives the sail generally a little bit more power. These are what Eric has some fancy name about these things, these graphs or whatever. I just call them ultrasounds of the sail. But you can tell that
Sails aren't
there is a
pregnant,
little
man.
bit. Well, but so the brighter colors are the shape, and there's a little bit more shape in the 2, and you can kind of make the 2 and the 6 look very similar depending on the day and the settings, but in general the 2 is a little bit more forgiving, a little bit less in-hull sensitive, a little bit easier to drive to, but it's kind of been, I use this sail a bunch at Cal, and I've really found it to be very easy to use.
Yeah, these diagrams, the lighter colors are more shape, darker colors are less. As you can see, the J2 high clue on the right has a pretty even distribution, a little rounder in the back. You can see on the J6 here on the left, we pushed the shape forward in the sail. You see that big white area that's way up front. That's the area that the helmsman is always looking at. We try to make the sail with a little wider groove down there, so that when it's so light that the forestay can't sag enough in a J70 because the rig is so stiff, that it still keeps that nice entry angle, a nice wide groove, and it's very straight in the back. So it's a little more critical to in-haul, to get the sail to give you some more power. You in-haul quite aggressively on this sail. It's not to be said you can't do the same with the J2, especially in Del Rey, where it's, you're never going to be blowing the main out. I'd be very surprised if we ever sail in a condition that we don't in-haul, because it's so windy. It's just not going to happen. So, on board, you can, it's tough to tell the difference between the 2. You can get them to look very, very similar. I think the basic fact that, that Alec talked about is it's a little more forgiving sail on the J2 on the trim side. J6, a little more critical, but still very nice sail. It's tough to go wrong with either one. It's really a personal preference.
So we just got another question for the chat for you guys to kind of go back through and reiterate from, I don't know how to pronounce it, Aldo. But he was asking, what is the typical wind strength? He's a little confused, saying he thought it was 6 to 8 knots, but you guys are saying it might be a little more. What do you anticipate the wind strength would be during this event?
I think 8 to 14 most of the time is kind of, maybe if it's a super clear day and it's not that hot in LA and it's kind of hotter inland, maybe you'll see 16, 17, but kind of right in that 8 to 14 realm is what you're going to see 80, 85% of the time.
Yeah, you might see 6 to 8 up the first beat of the first race, if we get off on time and there's no general recalls. But Alex is spot on. We're going to see 8 to 12, never more than 14. That's what I'm putting my money.
It's really pleasant sailing. It's really pleasant.
Champagne sailing.
For those of you who went to San Francisco and dealt with that beat back to St. Francis Yacht Club,
no.
It's not going to happen. You're going to be sailing downwind in.
Yeah.
It's going to be really nice.
Pleasant.
It's going to be just
crack
Bitch
open the
and
beers.
sailing.
So it sounds like, noon start, 2 races. You're probably going to be in by 4:30-ish. It's going to be a pretty nice setup. That's what it sounds like.
It's going to be great. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
We all can't wait for that. Well, going back to the sail topic, I mean, we've gone through mains and jibs, but the one thing we kind of have in agreement here is the spinnaker, right? So I don't know which one of you two guys want to talk about it, but it's the same sail we've had from the get-go. I think Eric had some comments on it before, but Alex, sorry.
Yeah, Eric, it's fastest sail in the world, right? Top 10 in the world, is on every boat in the top 10. I mean, you can't argue with that. That's incredible.
Yeah, we keep trying to make something faster, and we haven't been able to come with anything yet. And it's not that we haven't tried. The biggest difference initially when we started racing these boats, Dynacoat was very popular cloth. It's a contender product, a little softer, a little more forgiving. It has a silicone-based coating on it, which lets it jibe a little quicker, which keeps the water off of it nicely. It's developed for skiff sailing, to be a slick finish for all those same reasons I just mentioned. When we went to San Francisco for the Worlds, it seemed that the Arex was a little more stable. It's very nice in flat water, very nice once the breeze comes up and you start pumping, in that it has a little more of a firmer feel to it. The Dynacoat seems to excel in lighter, bumpier conditions, kind of that, when you're really struggling for power, your full displacement mode, you got people on the low side. It's quite forgiving sail, kind of keeps the boat rumbling through the water a little nicer. So those are the two options, and there could, we sell more Arex than we do Dynacoat, but if there's going to be a place where it's an option, it could be Marina Del Rey, but it's tough to go wrong with the AP1 out of Arex if you're just going to get one kite in the lead up.
Got it.
Yeah, and the Dynacoat stuff is, it'll be good. And for those morning races, I would think, the first race of the day. But I've sailed in Santa Monica Bay where it gets really nice at the end of the day and it's 15 knots and you get, tons of northwest swell and you're not planing, but you're pumping and lazy planing and trying to sail VMG as low as you can. And it's really fun on port jibe specifically, but at that scenario, probably Arex is probably better.
Yeah, and if you want graphics, I don't think you can do Dynacoat, right, Eric?
You cannot, no.
Yeah,
it doesn't stick to the Dynacoat. Talk about that silicone.
There goes
surface.
your program, Alan. No whale on the Dynacoat.
No Dynacoat for us. We can't get a whale.
No whales.
But,
no whales on the kite.
All right, so Alex, so they pushed the schedule back, obviously. So, what's the lead up now? We have a whole year plus leading up to this event. What are you looking for in Southern California now?
Yeah, so Cal Race Week got rescheduled to August 1st and 2nd. It was supposed to be at the end of this month, but obviously with everything going on, fingers crossed that the politicians and the situation kind of gets a little bit better. And we're hoping to have this regatta August 1st and 2nd, and Cal will make a decision a couple weeks beforehand. I know I will be there. And then they have a J70 Winter Series. It's traditionally the second weekend of January, February, and March. And while it's not going to be a great kind of simulation for the world, it is good to kind of get the routine down and figure out where everything is and, kind of get things moving. And then from there, we go to Eric's backyard, and you definitely can't sail with a Torqeedo or motor out with a Torqeedo at San Diego Yacht Club. Hi, Eric.
No, same deal as Marina Del Rey. It's 3, 4, 5 miles out to the race course. Racing in San Diego, first weekend of May. Very similar to Marina Del Rey in that you're in a semi protected bay, but you get a lot of ocean swell, so you kind of get used to that. Has very similar characteristics on the breeze. If the The eddy is strong. You know, you can have a strong southerly in the morning, and you might sail in San Diego. It's more likely that you'll sail on a southerly kind of the whole first race, but you're always looking over your shoulder for it to really jump around the other side of Point Loma and get to the northwest. So San Diego, first week of May. There is, I see a question in the chat room, will there be a 2021 San Diego nude? Yes, there is. That's generally earlier in the year, like in
March.
early
usually.
March.
Yeah.
But we generally sail that regatta in South Bay out of Coronado Yacht Club, which is fantastic sailing. It's very fun, very, very flat water because it's inside the bay, like we said, south of the Coronado Bay Bridge. And it's very different. It's fun sailing. It's absolutely polar opposite of what you're going to see out in the ocean, either in San Diego or in Marina Del Rey, because there's no swell. It's a little bit shiftier, super flat water, tons of wing and wing, which is tough to do in the ocean unless it's the first race or the wind has come up very quickly and there's swell. So Yachting Cup, highly recommended. It's a really good warm up for the Worlds. And then you got Cal Race Week, which is at the Worlds venue. It's going to be a very popular regatta next year, kind of between Cal Race Week and the Worlds. It's generally Long Beach Race Week, one of the best venues in the world for wind. You know, we can go there and it can blow 18 to 22 for 3 days straight out in the ocean. Really fun. And sometimes they rotate and we sail inside the breakwater as well, but that's a great venue as well. Great host, Long Beach Yacht Club, Alamitos Bay Yacht Club. Normally, you know, 30, 40 boats minimum, probably be more next year. And then we'll go to Cal where there'll be a tune-up regatta before the Worlds and then the Worlds.
Long Beach is almost a can't miss event with the Worlds. You have to do it. Yeah. It's not an option. It's the best sailing in Southern California. Marina Del Rey is close, but I mean, it's just perfect.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And basically, if you know, teams have plenty of time to plan now. You can come down to San Diego, you know, contact us, myself or Alex or the yacht club. We'll find places for you to keep your boats. You know, we'll find guys to move your boats up the coast if you want. You know, we've got lots of options for storing boats between events. You know, space is kind of tight, California, especially on the water. But, you know, there's storage facilities and there's guys who specialize in this, and there's shops. If your boat's got a problem, you can get it fixed between events. So contact us, you know, plan to come out early, plan to come out, at least for Yachting Cup and to do, one of them, at least Cal Race Week or Long Beach Race Week. And we'll make sure your boat's taken care of in between the events.
So before we wrap this up, we got a couple questions that weren't, well, one is in the chat and one's not, but I'll give you the chat one. So how many beers is it going to take to get in at the end of the day? I mean, you said it's a long motor out, right?
Yeah.
But that means it's got to be a decent sail in. So is it a 4 beer, like one per person or two per person?
If everybody drinks on your boat, you got to have at least a 6, at least an 8-pack. It's 2 beers.
8. Yeah. It's a 2 beer. It's a 2
beer minimum.
Beer.
I would say.
Got it.
And it's a long dock. It's a long dock at Cal Yacht Club. So you need at least a roadie between the boat and the club. So I'm just going to round up and say 12.
So, but you can have a cooler on the dock, and then, so maybe 8, and then when you have it at the dock.
Well, a lot of times Cal Yacht Club puts a keg out by the dock. So, and they'll, like I said, they're designed to host events. There's going to be beers and cocktails and stuff.
Can you stop at the gas dock and get beer on the way back?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Got it. And then, someone who's not on the call wanted me to ask you, so, if you've never been there, how close is LA downtown to where you see, all the movie stars and all that stuff from the club? I mean, is this like a realistic thing? Like, is a LeBron James sighting possible? I mean, what's the deal?
He lives up in the hills. He lives way up in the hills, and they don't like to mingle with the peasants down low. They kind of sit up there. But if you go to Venice Beach and you go to Muscle Beach, and, you could see a guy like Doyle, doing, little bench pressing next to some actress or Instagram model. There are a lot of Instagram models, males and females alike, that kind of hang out in Santa Monica and Venice Beach. And Venice is a very like hip town, and plenty to do.
Santa
Some
Monica.
really fun bars.
So the chat is saying it's a 1 hour drive. From the
That's a
outlet to
problem.
downtown.
Yeah, downtown is close, but the traffic in LA is friggin' epic. You don't go downtown on a weeknight. Santa Monica is very close. You can get there, and there's plenty to do in Santa Monica by the pier. There's cool restaurants, there's cool bars and clubs. Downtown, you got to wait and go later, which is fine. If you drive there, leaving at 7, 8 o'clock, that's better. And like we said, we're very civilized. We don't start before 11:30 or something, so you can sleep in a little bit. But weekends is a little easier to get downtown, even though you can, if it's clear, you can see it from the race course.
Gotcha. So we had one question about if you could go over the wind directions with the map again real quick before we sign off. So I'm going to back up here real quick so you guys can do it. Hopefully I can get to it real quick, but just a quick talk on that. So for those of you who are asking, we'll go through this one more time. Bear with me 1 second here. So the yacht club is here, this green dot, right, guys?
That's the entrance to the harbor.
So we'll be sailing in here.
Yeah, right in there. Not quite that far out, but right
Go in
there.
here?
You can see, the lighter colors. That's the nice 10 to 14 knot sea breeze that's come in. It's wrapped into the bay around Malibu. It's you can see the eddy instead of the breeze going south of Catalina and wrapping back up. It's jumped the north side, and it's just a typical sea breeze. That direction right there is what, Alex? That's probably 280, something like that. Right on the racetrack.
265 to 285. Yeah.
So in the morning, you might see a breeze direction kind of this way.
Correct.
So 190-ish, maybe?
190 to 220.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yep.
Yeah.
And then late in the day, you might get a 310, maybe? No?
Yeah, it might go as far as that briefly, but
That's
290.
max right.
Yeah.
And then you never really see wind coming off the shore.
Not that
That
time
would be-
of year.
That would be the most bizarre thing, right?
That's right. We have that in the fall. It's called Santa Ana winds, when their high pressure dominates over the land and is pushing out, and it gets quite strong. But it's hard to race in that because it often stops right at the shoreline because the sea
Right here.
breeze is fighting to come in. So it's really hard to race in that because Santa Ana will push out, and then the sea breeze will push back in, and they're just fighting each other, and it's tough to even set a race course.
Right. So basically what we're saying, we're going to race, right here about 1.5 to 3 miles off the beach. Is that fair? And then, wind direction somewhere in 200 to 290. Is that about right?
Yes. Yeah. Starting
And
line will be 1.5 miles, 2 miles off the beach. And, depending on how big the fleet is, how long he makes the first leg, probably a couple miles.
And, first race of the day would be 6 to 10, 12 maybe. And the second race would be 8 to 14.
Yep. You got it.
Sounds pretty nice to me.
It's perfect.
Sounds pretty nice. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up here. I just wanted to thank you two for your time and putting all this together. I really appreciate it. I know everyone's looking forward to the event, and while everyone is bummed we're not out there this year, we know it's going to be awesome next year. So thank you two for taking the time to put this together. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Al. Nice job. Nice, Alex. Appreciate everybody who
Thanks, everybody.
tuned in. Thanks for the questions and everybody.
Yeah,
Any more, send them to us. We'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah, please be sure to send these guys emails if you have questions about anything pertaining to Southern California, even if it's just logistics, but sales setup, who to sail with, who the local guys to tack on are, whatever it is.
Doug McLean.
Eric.
Tack on Doug McLean.
Eric.
Right. Anybody that you need, who the local legends are. I'm sure you guys will meet a guy who never wears a shirt, and cruises around.
Chris Rab.
You know, there's plenty of local characters there in California
Oh, yeah.
that'll make it fun. So
We'd go pro in Venice.
exactly. So when you guys have any questions, send these guys a note, and we really appreciate it. And stay tuned for our next J70 Monday. We're not exactly sure on the schedule, but it'll be coming up here. Definitely not next week, but possibly 2 weeks. And we'll be back with you. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Alan.